We make our own destinies, and we are not ruled by the flight of some damn bird! Over there stand the rebel slaves. They are braver and more worthy than men of their type have any right to be. They think their walls are enough to stop us. They should think again. I fought and lost against these men, but it is not something that will happen again. Today, I take my revenge. Today, you taste the fruits of victory. I have won many great victories for Rome. Be strong in that truth, and let this be one more. March on, and know that our victory is assured as long as we live and die like true Romans.
Rome Total War isn't just my favorite Total War game, it's probably my favorite strategy game of all time. It has an unbelievably great soundtrack. It has a lot of really intuitive micromanagement where there's a lot to do and a lot to take care of, but you can put a lot of it on autopilot, but even if you don't, you can still figure it all out because it makes sense. It's not confusing. It's not like one of those crazy point-and-click adventure games where you can catch a golden fish that you need with like a shoe. Even though there's a lot to do in the game, the menus are logical and everything is easy to understand. And of course, probably the best part of the game is the amazing epic battles you have. You're controlling hundreds and hundreds and sometimes thousands of different types of soldiers as you fight other armies or sack villages and towns and major cities. Everything from the archaic music to the absolutely astounding graphics is endearing in this game. The game starts off with these 3 Roman families to choose from, and all of them have the same goal in mind. They want to take over all of Rome, but on top of that, they also want to take over the entire world. And the latter is actually easier than the former. To take over Rome, you have to control a bunch of Senate seats, but if that doesn't work, you can just kind of invade Rome, but then everybody will be against you, and Rome, being the strongest military force in the world back then, I don't have to tell you, it's not an easy challenge. The micromanagement portions of this game are mostly done in this world view, where you move your armies around to either take over villages or control territories, or just to explore the massive world. This is where you can also control other characters, such as spies and diplomats. Spies basically spy on enemy or friendly armies and cities, whereas diplomats are more about negotiating treaties. For example, I'd go to a town and we would share map information with each other, but also we would open up trade routes, and the more trade routes you open up with different factions and different civilizations, the greater your profit will be, because obviously there's more commerce going through your own city and country. On top of that, there's a lot of city building. You build everything from stables to markets to ports. I mean, anything you can think of from 2,000 years ago, you can build in this game. And as you keep building buildings, new options are open to you. For example, you can build an archery range, and now you can recruit archers in the city where you build the archery range. There's a huge number of different soldiers you can have, but the basic gist of it is the soldiers that are mounted are really good against foot soldiers, and especially those that have bows and arrows. Foot soldiers with really long weapons, such as spears, are really good against horse soldiers. So the best way to fight soldiers on horseback is to either attack them with other horsed soldiers or to march at them with an army of speared men. Sparta and Greece are actually really good in this regard because they have a lot of soldiers that use really long spears. Foot soldiers with shields also aren't bad, but they're more about defense. They're good at holding back an army attacking your town if you put them in the middle of choke points and things of that nature. What I really love about Rome Total War is the absolute freedom you have when it comes to playing it. For example, there are certain tasks the Roman senators ask you to do, but you can choose to ignore Rome, do whatever you feel is better for yourself, and then when Rome gets really pissed at you and attacks you, you'll be strong enough where you'll actually be able to fight them if you want. Of course, in the beginning, it's best not to piss off the strongest military might of the known world. I found myself doing a lot of Rome's dirty work in the beginning. taking over cities, fighting various rebels. Don't get me wrong, I prospered from this, but I was always like a lapdog doing someone else's bidding. And sometimes listening to Rome is absolutely detrimental to you. For example, I was at war with the Gaelic nation, and these guys, while not being the strongest soldiers, they have a lot of settlements and just a lot of manpower. So this war wouldn't be technically hard, but it would take a lot of effort on my part. Suddenly, Rome tells me to invade a city owned by the Carthaginians, or however you pronounce them, and all of a sudden, I'm thinking, if I do this, I'm going to be at war with two major factions, and not only that, one faction is directly above me, the other is directly below me, so in essence, I'll be trapped. I'll be like in a little deadly sandwich, if you will. So I kind of went against Rome's wishes and didn't invade the Carthaginians. What I actually did was I built a boat for one of my diplomats, sailed him to the little Carthaginian city in the middle of nowhere on the water, and then I actually had him talk them into handing the city over to me for a price or various threats, whatever. The point is, it didn't work. Things like that very rarely work. The sword really is mightier than the feather and ink at this point in man's history. So I just kind of left my diplomat on this island because I didn't really need him at that point, and he lived the rest of his life out on the outskirts of that city, periodically asking them to hand the city over to me, and of course, it never worked. And ultimately, I forgot about him at some point. As the years went by, I still saw him standing there, but I don't know what became of him. He probably married a Carthaginian woman and opened up some kind of diplomat school where he taught the Carthaginians how to be a diplomat. I don't know. So that's the empire management part of the game, but a lot of this game takes place on the actual battlefield, and that's where this game shines. All the different types of soldiers I mentioned take part in massive battles, hundreds and hundreds of men fighting each other, and the strategies are always different because the enemies always have different types of soldiers coming at you from different directions. The gist of it is two armies are set up and they march at each other, or run at each other, and fight each other. And the point is to get the soldiers that are good against other soldiers to attack those while not being attacked by soldiers that are good against the soldiers that are attacking. It's basically a rock, paper, scissors mentality, but it's a lot more complicated than that because of just how many different types of soldiers there are. There aren't only 3 different types. The only really bad thing I can say about Rome Total War is sometimes the soldier AI can be downright stupid, but it's almost not like their fault, because they start jerking about and moving in weird ways or getting stuck in environments when there's a choke point or there's just so many characters on the screen that it would be confusing for a real person. Forget about a computer-generated little sprite. It's kind of annoying, but you gotta expect stuff like this from a game where there are hundreds and thousands of little soldiers to control at once. This battle you're watching is one of the most epic battles ever. I took over this major Gaelic city, and I noticed there's this huge army standing right next to my city, so I'm all cocky, filled with piss and vinegar from my victorious annihilation of the entire army of the city, so I thought I'd leave the city, take my army, and invade this army standing right outside. So I start this fight with the army, and already I feel like something's wrong because I'm getting my ass kicked. And I realize this isn't just the army, this is actually the main army of the entire civilization. This is an army led by the king of the civilization. And I almost realized this too late, but I managed to actually pull a win out of my ass somehow. I don't know how I did it, but I guess playing this game for so many years left me with some residual mastery of the game's tactics. This is a battle where I invade a rebel town. The gate in the town was already broken open, so I think the rebels very freshly took it over, where they didn't even get a chance to rebuild the gate. So I outnumber them, and I just march into the city. I completely decimate all of their defenses, and they all merge together in the center of town, and all my foot soldiers are coming from one side, completely destroying them. And then I got my emperor and his nephew coming on horseback from the other side, and then the emperor and his nephew and their elite powerful horsed soldiers attack the already decimated rebel army from the side, and we kind of smoosh them into paste with this strategy, and we end up with a heroic win. It was really satisfying, but it's not as satisfying as the game I explained before, where I was on the brink of defeat and still pulled out a win. Those are the battles that really count. The battles where everything is against you. The battle where everything is going wrong and you use your superior strategy to win. In this battle I used a good strategy, but I would have won even if I just marched forward and left the AI on autopilot. Rome Total War is just purely rich from every angle. From a gameplay, from a fun factor, from a graphical, from a soundtrack standpoint. Games like this is where PC gaming shines. And Rome Total War is a prime example of how strategy games should be made. Rome Total War gets an official Stan Birdman rating of a 9.5 out of 10. If you have not played this game before, even if you're not a strategy fan, you will absolutely love this game if you have half a brain. Thanks for watching. Goodbye, my friends.